I still remember the night I found the first message. It was 2:13 a.m. My husband's phone lit up on the nightstand while he was snoring beside me. I wasn't snooping, but the preview caught my eye. Had a great time tonight. Same place tomorrow? My heart dropped. I opened the message thread and found weeks of late-night conversations with a woman saved as Mike's work. Only, it wasn't Mike. It was her. Photos, hotel room numbers, voice notes, everything. When I confronted him, he barely looked up from his cereal. "We're just talking. You're overreacting," he said, like I hadn't just read plans to meet again that very night in a Marriott off the freeway. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I had spent 5 years building a life with this man, paid half the mortgage, cooked every meal, smiled through family dinners, while he held his phone under the table. Just talking? Then why was he booking hotel rooms under fake names at 2 a.m.? He thought I was too emotional, too clingy. So I stopped arguing. I stopped reacting, but I didn't stop watching. Over the next 2 weeks, I documented everything. Screenshots, bank charges, call logs. I even followed him once, watching from my car as he walked into that same hotel with her, laughing like nothing mattered. My hands shook, but I held the camera steady. I wasn't just hurt, I was humiliated. But I wasn't going to scream or cry anymore. I was going to be smart. I met with a lawyer, quietly, calmly. I found out that in our state, adultery could swing the divorce in my favor, especially with proof. And oh, I had proof. My lawyer nearly choked on his coffee when he saw the folder I handed him. Hotel receipts, text backups, time-stamped videos. "You've built a case most people only dream of," he said. I waited until the weekend. I asked him to go with me to a friend's wedding out of town. He agreed, thinking everything was normal. On the drive, I played our favorite playlists, acted like I always did. We checked into a beautiful hotel suite, the kind he used to sneak into with her. But this one was booked in both our names. That night, I served him dinner in the room and handed him a gift box. Inside were printed screenshots of his messages, copies of hotel bills, and a letter from my lawyer. His face went pale. "What is this?" he asked, voice cracking. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Just talking, right?" He panicked, tried to explain, cried, said he was confused, made a mistake. But it was too late. I already had my exit plan in motion. He was going to lose the house, half of our shared assets, and his reputation. All because he thought I was overreacting. No yelling, no drama, just a calm, brutal ending to his secret little fantasy. He thought he was clever, but he forgot I pay attention even when I pretend I don't. He used to say I was boring, predictable, that I lived like a routine. Wake up, go to work, come home, cook dinner, sleep, repeat. He'd roll his eyes every time I planned a grocery run or reminded him about bills. "You never do anything spontaneous," he'd say, lying on the couch in sweatpants, scrolling through his phone. Meanwhile, I was the one working double shifts at the clinic, paying the rent on time, and making sure the lights stayed on. He called it a routine. I called it survival. When we first got together, he said he had big dreams. Music, maybe photography, something creative. I supported him. I told him to take his time, explore what he loved. I even picked up extra hours so he could find himself. But finding himself started to look a lot like sleeping till noon, gaming all night, and leaving dishes piled up in the sink. I didn't complain, not at first. I believed in him. I thought if I just held things down long enough, he'd eventually get up and meet me halfway. But he didn't. Instead, he started resenting me, said I was always tired, that I never wanted to go out, that I had changed. He forgot that the girl he fell in love with was still there, just under layers of stress, responsibility, and exhaustion. I hadn't changed. I had adapted, because someone had to. Then came the day that broke me. I came home after a 14-hour shift to find him on the balcony with his friends, drinking. Our rent was due in 3 days. I reminded him gently, and he laughed in front of everyone and said, "Relax, you always figure it out. You love playing the hero, don't you?" They laughed. I didn't. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, realizing I was nothing but a convenience to him, a live-in safety net. So I started planning, quietly. I opened a second bank account, transferred a bit of my paycheck each week, booked a small apartment close to my work. 1 bedroom, no frills, but mine. I told no one, not even my sister. I waited until the lease was up, then gave him 30 days notice like a landlord would. He thought I was bluffing, until I packed my things in silence, handed him the keys, and walked out without looking back. He messaged me a week later, said he missed me, said he didn't realize how much I did, that the house felt empty, cold. I didn't reply, because the boring, predictable routine he mocked, that routine built a life. It paid for food, heat, and peace of mind. It gave him the freedom to chase dreams he never worked for. And now, I have a new apartment, a full fridge, and silence that doesn't feel heavy. He's still trying to find himself, but me, I finally found peace. The moment he said, "I think we need a break," he waited for my reaction like it was a performance. He leaned back, arms crossed, expecting tears, maybe a dramatic scene. He even tilted his head like he was bracing for impact. But I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't ask why. I just smiled calmly. That threw him off. He paused, unsure. "Did you hear what I said?" he asked like I hadn't understood. I nodded. "I heard you," I replied. That was it. He had no idea that I already knew everything. The late-night texts, the perfume on his shirts, the sudden gym obsession. I knew there was someone else, and I knew this was his way of setting the stage to leave me looking like the desperate one. But what he didn't know was that 2 weeks earlier, I had already visited a lawyer, quietly. I sat in her office, laid out the situation, and asked what my options were. I left with a plan, confidence, and copies of documents that would shift everything in my favor. So when he thought he was dropping a bomb on me, I had already cleared the debris. The next day, he packed a few bags, said he needed space to think. I helped him zip up the suitcase. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. "You're really okay with this?" he asked. I said, "You need space, and I need peace. Seems fair." He didn't say anything after that, just left, probably thinking I'd call in a day or two, crying and begging him to come back. But I didn't. I changed the locks instead. Then came the real surprise, the divorce papers, delivered right to his new, temporary apartment. He called me in shock. "You're serious?" he asked. I told him I'd never been more serious in my life. "But we haven't even talked about it," he said. I reminded him, "You wanted space. I gave you legal space." He went quiet. Turns out, walking out without a real reason and cheating with someone from work doesn't look good in court, especially when the other partner has proof. And I had all of it. Screenshots, phone records, even hotel receipts. The lawyer told me he wouldn't see this coming, and he didn't. He tried to fight it at first, tried to get me to settle quietly, said we could work something out. But by then, I was done working things out for people who never considered me in the first place. In the end, I kept the house, most of our savings, and my peace. He walked away with nothing but regret and an empty apartment he could barely afford. He thought I'd fall apart without him, that I'd cry, break down, chase him. But I didn't have time to fall apart. I was too busy rebuilding a better life, one that didn't include someone who thought leaving me would destroy me. He stood in the kitchen with his arms crossed, eyes cold, and said the words like he had been rehearsing them. "She understands me better than you ever did." No emotion, just a simple sentence, like it wasn't meant to break something deep inside me. I looked at him for a second, then simply replied, "Then maybe you both can explain that to a judge." Under oath. His face dropped. He hadn't expected that. He thought I'd scream, cry, beg, anything but stay calm. But I was done with emotional reaction. I had already prepared for this moment. For weeks, I had seen the signs. He stopped coming home on time. He became secretive with his phone. He made excuses to stay late at work. And when I'd ask questions, he'd say I was being insecure or too controlling. But I wasn't stupid. I trusted my gut. I didn't argue anymore. I just started gathering evidence, quietly, smartly. I took screenshots of suspicious texts when he left his phone unattended. I noted strange charges on our shared credit card. I even followed him once, just to be sure. And I was right. He was meeting her, not just for coffee. They looked like they had been in a relationship for months. I reached out to a lawyer the next morning. I explained everything and handed over the evidence. She nodded and said, "He won't know what hit him." We filed for divorce immediately. I stayed quiet while the papers were prepared, not saying a word to him. I wanted him to show me who he really was. And he did. He started coming home even later, stopped hiding the messages, even had the nerve to leave her perfume on his collar. So when he finally said it, that she understood him better, I was already ahead of him. I pulled the envelope out of the drawer and placed it on the counter in front of him. "You'll need to read that," I said. "It's from my lawyer." He flipped through it, confused, then angry. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "Absolutely." He tried to play the victim then, said I was overreacting, that we could work things out, that I was making this bigger than it needed to be, but it was too late. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with the consequences. I wasn't just walking away, I was walking smart, with documentation, legal support, and a clear head. In court, his little affair didn't look romantic. It looked like betrayal, especially since we were still married, and I had all the proof of emotional and financial neglect. The judge didn't need much convincing. I got a fair settlement. He got exposed. And her? She wasn't even in the courtroom. So no, I didn't cry when he said she understood him better. I smiled, because now he could spend all his time explaining their love story to someone who actually mattered, the judge. He stood in the kitchen with his arms crossed, eyes cold, and said the words like he had been rehearsing them. She understands me better than you ever did. No emotion, just a simple sentence, like it wasn't meant to break something deep inside me. I looked at him for a second, then simply replied, "Then maybe you both can explain that to a judge." Under oath. His face dropped. He hadn't expected that. He thought I'd scream, cry, beg, anything but stay calm. But I was done with emotional reaction. I had already prepared for this moment. For weeks I had seen the signs. He stopped coming home on time. He became secretive with his phone. He made excuses to stay late at work. And when I'd ask questions, he'd say I was being insecure or too controlling. But I wasn't stupid. I trusted my gut. I didn't argue anymore. I just started gathering evidence, quietly, smartly. I took screenshots of suspicious texts when he left his phone unattended. I noted strange charges on our shared credit card. I even followed him once, just to be sure. And I was right. He was meeting her, not just for coffee. They looked like they had been in a relationship for months. I reached out to a lawyer the next morning. I explained everything and handed over the evidence. She nodded and said, "He won't know what hit him." We filed for divorce immediately. I stayed quiet while the papers were prepared, not saying a word to him. I wanted him to show me who he really was. And he did. He started coming home even later, stopped hiding the messages, even had the nerve to leave her perfume on his collar. So when he finally said it, that she understood him better, I was already ahead of him. I pulled the envelope out of the drawer and placed it on the counter in front of him. "You'll need to read that," I said. "It's from my lawyer." He flipped through it, confused, then angry. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "Absolutely." He tried to play the victim then, said I was overreacting, that we could work things out, that I was making this bigger than it needed to be, but it was too late. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with the consequences. I wasn't just walking away, I was walking smart, with documentation, legal support, and a clear head. In court, his little affair didn't look romantic. It looked like betrayal, especially since we were still married, and I had all the proof of emotional and financial neglect. The judge didn't need much convincing. I got a fair settlement. He got exposed. And her? She wasn't even in the courtroom. So no, I didn't cry when he said she understood him better. I smiled, because now he could spend all his time explaining their love story to someone who actually mattered, the judge. He thought he was being clever, thought he could lie to my face and walk around like nothing was happening. But what he didn't know was that I already had proof of everything. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't paranoid. I had hard evidence, messages, receipts, even his private browser history, all saved, dated, and backed up in 3 different places. I didn't confront him right away. I played it smart. I acted normal, smiled when he walked in late, cooked dinner like I didn't know. But inside I was building a case, quietly, patiently. It started with small suspicions. He changed his phone password, started clearing his call logs, left the room every time he got a text, said it was work, but I knew better. One night, after he fell asleep, I checked his phone, not out of jealousy, out of instinct. And there it was, flirty messages, pictures, even plans to meet at a hotel. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to myself, saved them in a hidden folder, and that was just the beginning. I checked our shared credit card statements, found charges for hotel rooms, fancy dinners, and gifts I never received. I called the restaurants and hotels, asked for digital copies of the receipts. Most were happy to email them over. I matched dates, times, and locations. I even got a copy of one receipt that showed 2 entrees, 2 drinks, on a night he said he was working late. Then I went deeper. I checked his laptop while he was in the shower, found private browser tabs he thought were hidden, searches like how to hide an affair and divorce laws in our state. I took photos of the screen. More proof, more truth he didn't think I'd ever find. At this point, I wasn't even heartbroken anymore. I was focused. I spoke to a divorce attorney and laid everything out on the table. She said, "You've done more than most people ever do. This is solid." We prepared everything quietly. I kept playing my role. Let him think he was in control. Let him feel like he was getting away with it. But every lie he told just added to the pile of evidence I already had. Then one morning I handed him an envelope at the breakfast table. He opened it slowly, his face shifting as he read the legal language. "What is this?" he asked, already knowing. "Divorce papers," I said. "You might want to get a lawyer." He looked shocked. "You don't have proof." I stared at him and said, "I have more than proof. I have a full archive." That's when he realized he wasn't going to talk his way out of this. He wasn't going to gaslight, deny, or manipulate. I had him backed into a legal corner, and he knew it. He looked down, silent, and I walked away, calm, strong, and completely in control. Because while he was busy lying, I was busy preparing. She wasn't just the other woman. She was someone else's wife, a fact he conveniently forgot while sneaking around behind my back. When I found out about her, I didn't just get mad, I got focused. I did my homework. I wasn't going to be the only one living in betrayal while she went home every night to a man who had no idea she was destroying 2 marriages. So I found him, her husband, and I made sure he knew everything, in person, with screenshots. It all started when I finally saw her face in the texts. He had saved her contact under a fake name, but one night he left his phone on the kitchen counter and it lit up. She had sent a selfie, smiling, in a hotel mirror, wearing the necklace I gifted him on our anniversary. That was my breaking point. I pulled every message, every photo, every sneaky little hotel booking confirmation. I made a folder, printed everything out, dates, times, locations, her words, his replies. Every lie was documented. I did a little social media digging, and within a few hours I found her real name and her husband's profile. He looked normal, happy, naive, just like I had been. So I messaged him. I didn't send the screenshots right away. I asked to meet in person, told him it was important and involved his wife. He agreed. We met at a coffee shop near his office. He looked confused, concerned. I sat down, took a breath, and said, "I'm really sorry you're hearing this from me, but I think you deserve to know the truth." Then I handed him the folder. He flipped through the pages, his hands shaking a little. There was silence, just page after page of betrayal unfolding right in front of him. He didn't say much, just stared. I could see the heartbreak, the disbelief. Then finally he looked up and whispered, "Thank you for telling me." That was it. We didn't need to talk more. We were 2 strangers linked by the same knife to the back. I walked away feeling strangely calm, not victorious, just relieved. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was just someone who deserved better. And now he knew the truth too. She didn't get to play perfect wife anymore while sneaking around with mine. I had pulled the curtain down. Later that night, she called my husband in a panic, screaming, crying. Apparently her husband kicked her out. Good, actions have consequences. My husband looked at me like he wanted to blame me, but I didn't flinch. "You both made your choices," I said. "Now live with them." I wasn't sorry. I wasn't cruel. I was fair. They broke 2 marriages. I just made sure they didn't walk away from it clean. He really thought this divorce would be quick, that I'd just sign whatever he put in front of me, cry a little, and quietly disappear from his life. But he had no idea what I had been preparing behind the scenes. I wasn't just walking away. I was walking away with power. The day he got served, he looked confident, almost smug. That smugness disappeared the second he read what I filed. It wasn't just a simple divorce petition. It was packed with everything he tried to hide: adultery, asset concealment, emotional abuse. And the best part? The prenup clause he forgot even existed. When we got married, he insisted on a prenup. I was fine with it because I didn't marry him for money. But what he didn't realize was that I had quietly added a clause with my lawyer's help, one that stated any infidelity on his part would void his rights to spousal support and entitle me to a larger share of assets. He signed it without reading carefully. Thought he was the clever one. But now, that little clause was going to cost him more than he ever imagined. My lawyer and I had put together everything: text messages, hotel receipts, even photos of him with her. I included details of how he tried to hide money too. Bank accounts he thought I didn't know about, cash withdrawals to avoid leaving a trail, luxury items bought under someone else's name. Every shady move he made, I brought it to light. And emotional abuse, I documented it all. The gaslighting, the constant belittling, the way he isolated me from friends, made me doubt my own worth. It was all written out, clear as day. When he read the papers, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. He kept flipping through the pages like he couldn't believe what was happening. "You can't prove all this," he said. I leaned in and said, "I don't need to prove it to you. I only need to prove it to the court." That shut him up fast. He tried to push back, of course, tried to negotiate, tried to guilt trip me, but it was too late. I had spent months preparing for that moment, quietly gathering proof while pretending everything was fine. He thought he was the only one playing a game, but I had been playing a smarter one, and now the consequences were his to face. The prenup clause meant he wouldn't see a dime of my earnings. The proof of adultery meant he had no leg to stand on, and the documentation of emotional abuse gave the court every reason to rule in my favor. The man who once said I was too boring, too soft, was now standing in front of a judge, realizing I was neither. He thought divorce would be quick. He thought I'd roll over. Instead, I walked into that courtroom with receipts, records, and rights, and I walked out with my dignity, my freedom, and everything he thought he'd keep. He thought he could cheat, lie, and then settle it all quietly behind closed doors. No apologies, no consequences, just a clean break so he could move on with his life and pretend nothing happened. He actually said to me, "Let's not make this messy." Messy? He made it messy the moment he started sneaking around with someone else while acting like the perfect husband in front of everyone. He spent years building this image of being a faithful husband, a generous church member, a loyal friend. But I wasn't going to let him walk away from this with his reputation untouched. If he wanted quiet, I gave him the opposite. I took it public. It started with a single conversation with his parents. They adored him, saw him as someone who could do no wrong. So I sat down with them and showed them everything. The messages, the hotel receipts, the screenshots of what he'd been doing behind my back. They were shocked. His mother cried. His father couldn't even look me in the eye. And just like that, the cracks in his perfect image began to show. Then I moved on to our closest friends, the ones he used to laugh with at barbecues, the ones who always came to us for marriage advice. I let the truth speak for itself. I didn't add drama or exaggeration. I just shared the facts. Screenshots of conversations where he mocked our marriage. Messages where he told his mistress I'd never find out. The proof was so clear, no one could defend him. Silence spread like wildfire among the group chats. People started picking sides, and most of them weren't on his. Next was the church. We had spent years attending, volunteering, smiling in pews like everything was perfect. He thought he could keep his role on the church board, continue pretending to be this moral, committed man. But I sent a respectful but direct email to the leadership. I attached the same proof. I told them they could make their own decisions about what kind of man they wanted representing them. It didn't take long. He was asked to step down, quietly but firmly. He acted shocked, embarrassed, but not once did he deny it. He couldn't. He begged me to stop, said I was ruining his life. But I wasn't the one who ruined it. I just stopped protecting the lie he'd been living. I didn't scream or throw things. I let the truth do the work, the same truth he never thought would catch up to him. By the time we reached court, the damage to his image was already done. No more sympathetic faces, no more supportive nods, just cold stares and quiet judgment. He thought he could cheat and still keep his crown, but I made sure everyone saw the real man behind the mask. He wanted quiet. I gave him truth, and the truth was louder than anything he expected. He thought I was just the boring wife who stayed home, paid the bills, and kept things running while he chased excitement. He mocked me behind my back, told his girlfriend I was predictable, dull, not fun anymore. But in the end, I was the one who walked away with everything, and he was left with nothing but regret. It all started falling apart the moment he realized I wasn't going to cry, beg, or break down like he expected. I stayed calm, quiet, and strategic, and that scared him more than any shouting ever could. When we went to court, he was cocky. He thought the judge would see him as a man who made a simple mistake, someone just confused and unhappy. But I had prepared for months. I had evidence, messages, hotel bookings, financial records showing hidden spending, and screenshots of conversations with his girlfriend. I presented it all through my lawyer, who laid it out piece by piece. It was undeniable. And when the judge looked over at him, I could see the color drain from his face. The prenup we signed years ago? He forgot about that. But I didn't. There was a clause that protected me in case of adultery. And since I had more than enough proof, that clause kicked in fully. He wouldn't get a cent of the house, no share of my retirement savings. And suddenly, the life he thought he could fall back on disappeared right in front of him. But that wasn't the end of it. His girlfriend, who had once gloated in secret, thinking she'd won, left him the moment she realized there was no more money, no stability, and definitely no future. She didn't sign up for a broke man with a bad reputation and a messy divorce. One morning he came home to find her gone, suitcase packed, no note, just silence. Then came the job. His employer had a strict code of conduct. Turns out they didn't appreciate the public mess or the screenshots that surfaced online. A quiet meeting with HR later, and he was officially unemployed. No reference, no sympathy, just a simple, "We're letting you go." And me? I stayed in the house. The same house he once told me felt too quiet. Now it was peaceful. I renovated the guest room, planted flowers out front, and poured myself a glass of wine on the back porch every evening. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The same woman he called boring was now financially secure, emotionally free, and stronger than ever. He underestimated me because I wasn't loud or dramatic. He didn't realize that calm doesn't mean weak, predictable doesn't mean powerless. And boring? Sometimes boring wins. I didn't just get justice, I got my life back. And he was left watching it all from the outside, where he put himself. He expected me to fall apart, to cry, scream, maybe even beg him to come back. But I didn't give him that satisfaction. I stayed silent. Not because I was weak, but because I was calculating. Every quiet night, every moment I bit my tongue, I was gathering strength, watching, planning. He thought I was clueless. He didn't realize I already knew everything. About the late-night texts, the hotel visits, the lies. I had it all. I just didn't show my cards too early. While he thought he was playing a game behind my back, I was quietly setting the board. He told her I was boring, said I didn't understand him. She believed she had won something. They had no idea that I was 3 steps ahead. I met with a lawyer before I ever confronted him. I built my case in silence. I collected receipts, messages, browser history. I didn't even have to dig deep. He was sloppy, arrogant, thought he'd never be caught. I waited for the perfect moment, not to yell, not to argue, just to act. And when I filed for divorce, it wasn't a simple filing. It was a full legal attack, adultery, emotional abuse, financial deception. With the prenup he had forgotten about, I wasn't just protected, I was in control. He thought he could convince me to settle quietly, but I had no reason to protect him, so I didn't. I made sure the truth was known, to our families, our friends, even his workplace. His clean image cracked overnight, but it wasn't just him I outplayed. His mistress, too, was in for a surprise. She was married and her husband had no idea. So I told him, not out of spite, but because he deserved the truth, just like I did. I handed him everything, screenshots, dates, details. The look on his face when he saw it all, shock, betrayal, it was like looking in a mirror. I knew that pain, but I also knew he'd use it the same way I did, to take his power back. They both thought they were untouchable, like no one could outsmart them. But they forgot the quiet ones or the ones you never see coming. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg for respect. I just moved in silence until it was too late for either of them to undo the damage. He lost his job, his girlfriend vanished, and his reputation crumbled. Meanwhile, I kept everything. The house, my dignity, my peace. I rebuilt quietly, just like I destroyed, without noise, without drama. Because silence isn't surrender. It's strategy, and I played it perfectly. If you enjoyed the revenge story, like, share, comment, and subscribe to World Revenge Stories, where every tale is a new saga of revenge.